Good afternoon, More Medic One. Today I have a Poulan chainsaw on the bench. The model is a P401 8WT. It's a wild thing. This saw's not that old. It's about, he said he used it for one season, and basically, I'm not knocking Poulan or anything like that, but these are considered paper towel chainsaws. You use them until they will not run anymore, or you can't crank them and you basically just throw them away. Because by the time you repair an engine on one of these, or a carburetor job, tune up, fuel line, spark plug, air filter, you just about bought the saw. But anyway, let's go ahead and do a compression test. As you can tell, that compression is a little high. And this is not depressing the throttle. About 180, 170, something like that. What happens usually on something like this is you have excessive carbon buildup on top of the piston and carbon buildup on top of the cylinder, which causes a high compression issue, and it will cause detonation from hot spots in the cylinder. That carbon glows and basically turns this two-cycle engine into a diesel engine, and which is not good. I think that's the case on this one because the cylinder and the piston are scored, and we're going to look down inside the exhaust ports here in a second, and I'm going to pull the cylinder and we're going to expose the cylinder, and we're going to look at the piston and all that good stuff, and we'll just do a tear down as I go along. Let's go ahead and remove the bar and the chain. It's just a 1/2-inch nut. Remove the safety brake side cover. Be sure the brake is on, or not in the on position. You want to set the brake. Otherwise, excuse me, sometimes you won't be able to get this cover off on some models of chainsaws. Just go ahead and set that off to the side. Remove the bar and chain. Let's take a look here in this cylinder. If y'all can see that, I'm going to get my flashlight. Try to set this up to where it shines in there a little bit. Okay. I'm going to pull this saw through, and on the right side over there, that piston is scored right there. I think what happened is a piece of carbon has flaked off the top of the piston and has gotten in between the piston and the cylinder walls. And that carbon is like sandpaper, and it will just completely destroy an engine. What causes too much carbon? One, running your mixture on your gas too rich on oil. The second thing that could happen is too much fuel through the carburetor. You're running the carburetor too rich. A plugged air filter. Number of things. Incorrect spark plug. Not running the saw wide open throttle, just kind of putting around with it. Running the saw in very hot temperatures for short amounts of time, stuff like that. But anyway, let's go ahead and we're going to pull this cylinder off of here, and we'll get it tore down. I'm going to take the side plate off right here, and I'm going to remove the carburetor so we can hopefully remove this cylinder without having to tear this thing completely down. Once you've removed the side plate starter assembly, we're going to go ahead and remove the flywheel. It's just a 1/2-inch or 13 millimeter. And a lot of times you can take you a brass hammer, and I'll see if I can do it. And on the opposite side of the crankshaft where the clutch is, you can just tap it. And that flywheel come right off there. Next thing we're going to do is remove the carburetor. They're 8mm or 5/16 nuts. And there's one Torx right up here in the corner. Batteries on my little snap-on 1/4 inch bit thing here. His driver's about dead. Go ahead and remove the air filter housing. Probably have to wrestle with it for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and remove this on-off switch right here from it, so it'll be out of the way. Right there. Go ahead and remove the throttle rod. It's basically just kind of spring-loaded in place. You can just pull it out of its bore here and then remove it. Should be able to slide the carburetor back now and up and off like that, and just kind of let it dangle by the fuel lines. If the fuel lines are rotten, you'd want to replace those. The intake manifold is held on by some Torx. There's two, one, two, and there's one, two on the bottom down here. Go ahead and remove those, and we'll get the intake manifold off. Go ahead and slide the intake manifold up and out. Don't lose the screws. You can actually remove the screws from the back side of this manifold and split this manifold, and you're able to clean it that way. This piston, this cylinder, is what we call strata-charged. It's got your main carburetor ports here and two fresh air ports that go around the cylinder on the sides. A lot of manufacturers are going to this style of engine now, and it's just wreaking havoc, because if the mixtures get off and the carburetor, like steel has a automatic compensating carburetor. If the air filter starts getting plugged up, the carburetor automatically starts getting richer, so it won't burn up the saw. But that's not an excuse for a lack of maintenance, though. So let's go ahead and get this ignition module off of here, right here. Well, you really don't have to, but I'm going to take it off just so I can show you more, cleanly. Once you remove the ignition module, everything comes off as an assembly, which I kind of like. Wiring harness, a module, and air filter assembly. Go ahead and flip the saw around, and we're going to remove the clutch. And several different ways you can do this. I like to use the tool for that. They've been using this style clutch, this NORAM clutch, for a long time, and they make a special tool for it. But if you don't have one, I don't recommend doing it, but you can stick you a punch right here and wrap that a few times with a punch and a hammer, and it will unscrew. But I'm going to go ahead and use the tool, and we'll get this clutch off. This is a tool that I've made a long time ago. It's part number 31112 is the only part number I could ever find on it, but you can get it at any Poulan dealer. I actually welded a 1/2 inch drive socket to it a long time ago, welded it up and kind of made it look nice, painted it and whatnot. Go ahead and slide the tool over the clutch. We're going to get the impact wrench and get this off of here. If my memory serves me right, you have to take the clutch off to the left. Yes, it's left-handed threads, which means you spin it to the right to get it off. Go ahead and remove the washer. And that will expose the oiler. Go ahead and remove the screws for the oiler. Most of the time the oiler will come right out of there with a little bit of finesse. Go ahead and wiggle it out of the track, oiler bar track. And as you can tell, look at there. That brake band is actually broken. But anyway, we can see now the engine crank seal, or the PTO side seal. So the brake band is broken on this one, usually from running the saw with the brake on. But to get this engine out of here, we're going to flip it on its side, or on it, yeah, and get under here. It's 5/16, and there's 4 of them, bolts. Go ahead and remove those. Once you remove these bolts, that engine should come right out of there. Now, you've got the short block in your hand. To get this rod and piston assembly out of here, you want to take your brass hammer and just tap right here on the crankshaft, not on the threads or anything, but just on the crank, and it'll pop it loose. There's some stuffing blocks in here, and they'll fall out. And as you can tell, holy mackerel, that whole side of that piston, the ring is even stuck. Can you see that? I'm gonna wipe some of the, see how scored that is? That's part of the problem. Carbon buildup on top of the piston is excessive. Oh wow, yeah. I wish y'all could see that. In there on top of that cylinder is just fluffy cake. Looks like, oh, I don't know, stuff that you'd flake off of an old Briggs & Stratton engine head that burned oil all of its life. Let me see if I can scrape some of this out of here. That wet, fluffy carbon builds up on top of that cylinder head and on top of this piston, and I guarantee you, right there, it got a piece lodged in between there and cooked this piston. But anyway, the rest of it looks pretty decent. Crank bearings don't feel bad. One thing I am going to do though is pull this off of here. And all in the bottom of this oil pan is nothing but sand and grit. So this engine was dead before it ever started due to the air filter. But anyway, if you have any questions about Poulan chainsaws and compression tests, sometimes will lead you astray. You can do a compression test on a saw and it'd be great, but the whole time you're diagnosing, the piston and the cylinder are scored, and once it gets hot it expands and you lose compression. But that's the way the ball bounces sometimes. So if you have any questions, let me know. More Medic 1. Y'all have a great day.